And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTabacco.com, and tonight I'm joined by Smokin Tobacco's own. Sorry, I see I totally just botched that whole intro. I got distracted. I got a phone call from my sister, and I'm just like, oh, what's this? I'm joined with our very own Nelson DeMello from Smokin Tabacco, but we are also joined by our very special guest, Mr. Tom Lazuka of Asylum 13 Cigars. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with me tonight, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm gonna jump right into it, and let's talk about what we're smoking first. I'm gonna bring this up. I'm in the producer's chair again. I'm starting to get a hang of it. Nicole hasn't been here for a little bit, but I'm starting to figure it out. Tom, I'll let you go first. You're our honorary guest of the night. So what are you smoking with us tonight?
I am actually smoking. I don't know if you can see it too well. The lighting's not great where I'm at, but I'm smoking the new CLE Signature Cameroon in the Toro size.
Ooh. Interesting. Nelson, what do you
so
got?
I'm not even smoking an Asylum.
Yeah, I know. Well, at least it's a CLE, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's under the umbrella, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Nelson, what do you got going on over there? You got some Corojo?
I got an Asylum 13 Corojo 6x60. I was telling Tom a little bit before we started. I've been saving this sucker for a year in an aging box, and it's just smoking amazing. I think the first ash that fell off weighed a pound, but it's a great smoke. What are you smoking, Matt?
So I am smoking the Asylum 13 Ogre 7x70. And according to our friends at twoguyscigars.com, you can grab this cigar for $10.29, or you can grab a box of them for $273.99, and that's at the number 2 guyscigars.com. Yeah, I just when you hear Asylum, and if you're a regular cigar smoker and you know cigars and you know the name Asylum 13, what's the first thing you think of? Big fucking cigars. And and we're totally gonna get into that tonight with Tom on the show. But I had a lineup of stuff. That I had some Pandemoniums. I had one of the 6-inch by 80. I had this, and then I had a 7x70 Asylum 9 that I picked up from somewhere. I cannot disclose where, because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, Tom. But I do have one, and I was deciding. I went with the Ogre because I would say, out of all the bigger sticks from Asylum, this is probably my favorite. It's not something I smoke all the time, because while I do enjoy it, it is a little bit of a commitment, and I never want to get halfway through and then just be like, oh, I'm done, because I don't want to waste it. Because I'm one of those people, I feel bad not finishing a cigar. It's weird, but I'm like, I gotta smoke every ounce of it.
That's one of the reasons I like the Asylums. Actually, it's almost like it forces me to not worry about other things. And I know this is gonna sound crazy, but it forces me to smoke a cigar. Instead of rushing, oh, I only have 45 minutes, I'm gonna bang out a Robusto. It's no, the whole reason for me that I smoke a cigar is to relieve stress, relax, go away. And the Asylum sticks actually just help you do that. You're not going anywhere. Sit down and relax.
Keeps you grounded. Yeah.
Buckle up, baby. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. People ask a lot because we use the funny names, and we'll use the schizo or the nectophilia or the medulla oblongatas, and we come up with these names, Insidious and things like that. But the real meaning behind the brand Asylum is the original tagline was everyone seeks asylum, and it's all about that time that you take wherever it is, if it's on your back porch or in your local cigar lounge or cigar bar. It's that time you take to go unwind and kind of get away from the stresses of life and just to relax, so that's really what it all means. And we hope that again we get to capture a little longer with the big cigars.
So Tom, let me just come right out and ask you, where did the whole concept for the really big vitolas and sizes really come from? Where did that inspiration come from?
So it's a funny story with that is, all the years, I've spent a lot of years on the road. I've been with Christian for 19 years, 17 years now, somewhere in there. I think I started with Christian 18 years ago. And, I worked as a salesman for Camacho on the road. And then when he sold the company, I went to Davidoff. And obviously, then we started this company in 2012. But we were not the first people to make the big ring gauge cigar. We're a couple guys with 70s in the marketplace, but as I would travel around the country, I always saw empty boxes. And I would ask the retailers, do they sell? They're like, yeah, but we can't get them. So when me and Christian sat down and really put this plan together, I said, I want to do big ring gauge cigars. And he said, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. and but the nice part between me and Christian is we're always trying, we want an I told you so moment in our lives, right? So wherever we're going, it's like, so Christian says, I said, listen, I already ordered the bands. You need to order the molds. So he says, all right, I'm going to do it just to say I told you so, but this is a bad idea. And then obviously, we went out on the road the first month in July of 2012. And it was right before the Orlando trade show in August. And we're driving around and Christian's selling the CLEs. And it was Robert Caldwell was with us at the time. We had the Winwood brand. And I remember people are like, there's one specific meeting. I won't name the person, but, he just kind of slid the boxes of our stuff to me and Robert and said, listen, I don't build brands. And then just turned to Christian and ordered his stuff. And we're sitting there thinking, wow, maybe we made a mistake here, and then we got into the trade show and it just absolutely exploded from day one. And Christian looked at me and said, all right, we're on to something, like hire a sales team. And right away now, it's just going to be me and him on the road and keep it pretty simple. And that lasted all of about 30 days. And next thing you know, we're hiring salespeople around the country, and it really, the brand has just taken off from then. But it was really just seeing supply, and so when we went to Nicaragua and decided to make the Asylum out of Nicaragua in the beginning, we sat down in the factory, and they were bringing us different things, and I said, listen, just do not bring me anything you can't make a million cigars with the first year. No binder, no wrapper, no filler. If you can't do it, then bring me different tobacco. So we blended the best cigar we could out of the available tobaccos, and it took off. We supplied it, and from that point on, it's just kind of, we've been known as the big ring gauge company. Sometimes it's the curse, because I still have 9.5 years later, people are say, "What? Hey, when are you going to make a robusto?" And I made a robusto from day one.
Yeah.
But because people just assume we just do big ring gauges, but we do everything. So, but it's been a good ride.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's great, because you found it's always successful when you find something people weren't really looking for. They didn't realize they were missing it, right? And that sounds like exactly what you did, right? You made an observation and turned it into a huge win. You almost like found the mousetrap, right, for cigars. And like I think you've cornered the market on it, right? No one, why at this point, now that it's been done, people can't even compete, right? I mean, you cornered the market.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other good companies putting them out there. Aganorsa, has their brand, and I think CAO does very well with the flathead line. So there's a few other companies that I think do very well with the large ring gauge. And obviously, George Rico Gran Habano had a 70 in the market. But
oh yeah, they're out there.
Yeah, for whatever reason, when we came in, it just stuck. And whether it was price, the cigar itself, and size, it just drew people to it, and it's just snowballed ever since. Today, the big ring gauges are still our number one selling cigars, and it keeps growing. People think it's a fad. It's not. Like, that big ring gauge market continues to expand for us, and it's all walks of life. So it's been a pretty cool thing, because we never really marketed towards anyone. It was just kind of blanket marketing and getting the brand out there, and it's been a fun ride to watch it grow. And I know you were saying that before we got on the show that you're going to have Christian on in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So please make sure you rub it into him, the I told you so. I don't care if he hangs up, I'll cover. But yeah, tell him, Tom said I told you so, and I've got the one up on him for at least the time being.
Yeah, it's funny. Even Nick Perdomo reintroduced the Immenso line, and he's got some big ring gauges too. And it was funny because he was when I think it was either right before he released it or right after he did. I was down in Miami and I earlier this year, and I was with him, and we were talking about it, and he was like, man, he's like, like honestly, like I don't get it, like the big ring gauge, like it's so big, like it's not something like. He's just like he couldn't fathom it, and then he's like people asking for it and they're buying it, and he's like, so I mean I gotta make it. I mean people want to buy it, so I'm gonna make it. He's like, but I just like, he's like the big ring gauge for me, like it's just like it's so strange, but he's like, but they want it, so I gotta make it.
Yeah, it's very listen. It's not traditional, like we've been surprised at almost every step of the way. I remember our distributor. We've got a great distributor in France named Charlie, and Charlie Sprite introduced it to the duty frees. And
Yeah.
we're thinking, okay, the European market, how are they going to react to large ring gauge? They're very traditional, and the duty frees were like, it's the greatest launch we've ever had. Like people
Wow.
wanted it, and when you think maybe the market doesn't want it, and especially a traditional market like the European markets, they've done very well in those markets.
Yeah, it's true. I
So
mean,
it's
when you look at like Cuban cigars that are, obviously not sold here, but they're sold over in Europe and Asia, obviously. You look at a lot of them and you're like, wow, they make a lot of small sizes in Cubans. Like we're all like the larger size. And the reality is well, they all smoke smaller sizes over there, and that's what they make the most of. So you introduce something like this, and it's like an interesting experiment, and then all of a sudden, oh wow, they really want this. Um,
Yeah, they just didn't exist there, right? So it was something completely new to their market, and it's taken really well. So
Now I
You
knew.
mentioned something. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nelson. I'll let you go first.
Well, I was, you mentioned something interesting, Tom, about, who's buying them, right? So you've never seen a certain demographic. I know you said you didn't target a certain demographic, but you don't find that there's a certain demographic or, talking about Europe versus U.S. It's just all over the
yeah,
place.
it's really all over the place. I hear truck drivers like because they're great for a guy who's on the road, right? He doesn't have to
Right.
keep relighting or doing another cigar, and there's different groups, but it's pretty much everywhere we go. Yeah, there's the occasional shop that say we can't sell big ring gauges, and they're very traditional, but for the most part, it doesn't matter where we go. It's been very successful.
Yeah, to me, I remember when I first saw them, and I was just so intrigued, and I didn't even like balk at them and be like, "That's stupid." I was just like, I'm like, it's
That's
just,
scary.
I'm like, because I feel like there's a good amount of people who would look at them and just kind of be like, "Oh, that's so dumb. Like, who's gonna smoke a cigar?" For me, it was just like, do I have what it takes, like, to smoke that? I remember the first one I bought. It was the 6 by 80, and it was a two-guy smoke shop. And it was David Garofalo actually had just come downstairs from his office, just as I had it in my hand, and I was bringing it to the counter, and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh man, you gonna do it?" And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, he's like, he's like, I just hope you have a lot of time because you're gonna need it when you smoke
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He's like, make sure you have a lot of time and a lot of water. He's like, but other than that, it's a good smoke.
Yeah. Well, a funny story. I remember, it was probably a couple of years in, it was probably 5 years in. And I remember Dave came to the booth at the trade show, and we were talking, and, he was like, Tom, I got to tell you, and when you came out and I thought, I'm going to start a cigar named Asylum and make 70 ring gauge cigars, I would have not have thought it would have worked, and here we are today. It's continues to grow, and David, Two Guys, has been a big supporter of our brands throughout the years. So thank you, David, and Two Guys and their whole crew over there, Ed and Jimmy and all the other guys there. So, it's just funny how it happened.
Yeah, I mean they even got the Asylum segment on the Cigar Authority, in which every Saturday
Yeah,
Barry graces us with. That's not only insane, it's Asylum. Shout out to
that's
Barry
great.
Stein. We love you,
Yeah,
Barry.
yeah,
So, but you know what it is, and you're right. You guys make regular standard sizes of plenty of cigars, but you're remembered for the larger sizes. And I think that that's pretty interesting because you guys have almost created your own. I don't know if you would agree with this, but I would say when it comes to the extended sizes of cigars, I feel like you guys have really taken that on as one of the top manufacturers of that market. Like I feel like most people identify Asylum first when they think of these larger cigars, and I think that's great for you guys. And you guys have really experimented with that really well. I know you have the Pandemonium line too, which is available in 3 different ring gauges, but they're all I want to say they're like 8.5 inches long.
correct. Yeah, we
Um,
do a 52, a 60, and a 70. Yeah.
and those are all fun too, and they're super long, especially if you're going the 80. I mean that's a super long 80 to
Yeah.
smoke. But they're great, and you know what? Not only you have like that wow factor of the size when you first see it and you get all excited like wow it's big, but you actually take the time to just put that aside and cut it and light it and smoke it. But they're not just gimmicks. Like they're good cigars. There's good tobacco in there. There's good flavor. They burn pretty well, especially. The quality on them's good. So it's not like it's just a gimmick. Like oh, here's a big cigar. No, these are quality cigars that are also just really
Thank
large.
you.
So I think that that's
Yeah,
also
thank
very
you.
important to say.
Yeah, I
I love the
appreciate that.
Pandemonium. The 52 is my favorite.
Yeah,
Great blend.
I enjoy like a longer length on cigars. Like I love A's and I love Lanceros and stuff like that. So I love the Pandemoniums. I've smoked all the sizes. They're all great. I would say in terms of the length though, the 52 is probably the best one for me when I just
Yeah.
really don't want to. But I'll do the 70, no problem. Give me like 3.5, 4 hours on a Saturday. I'll finish it. The only other
Yeah,
cigar
it's a
that
good football cigar.
it is, and I think the only other cigar that comes to mind that's similar in size would be how big's the LFD Digger? Because that's a pretty good
Yeah,
size
I
too.
think that is like a 60 or 58 by 8.5 also. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's another one that's a good size. Um, that's the only other one I can think of that's around the same. Not only the length but the ring too. And I'll never forget the last time I smoked one of those. I was actually with Carney, and I was helping him with one of his events. And I was like, well, I'm going to smoke LFD today. It's an LFD event. And I just remember I walked in there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. And for some reason, my mind said, I'm going to smoke a digger today. And he looked at me and he's like, are you serious? Like, you okay? Like, what? And I'm like, really? And he's like, I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to smoke LFD. He's like, but that's a hefty cigar to smoke during an event on a Thursday night. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And I just remember I got 3 hours in and I still had probably like a third of it left. And I was like, I don't know if I can keep going, dude. It's already like 9 o'clock. So they are a commitment, which is, we were talking about before, like Nelson was saying, he likes how like the Asylums, especially the larger cigars, they keep you in that place to sit there and smoke the cigar,
Yeah,
enjoy
it's a positive
yourself,
thing.
and relax instead of just being like, I'm going to rip through a Robusto or a Corona. Like, no, like you're going to smoke a larger ring gauge. It's going to keep you in that setting to just sit there and enjoy this cigar, which I think is another bonus to it, too.
Yeah, I think it's a great aspect of it, and I appreciate you, when you're talking about the quality and, in the beginning, a lot of people would always say, you're just putting cheap tobacco in there and that kind of stuff. And that's just not the case. There's a lot of tobacco in these cigars. And I also want to say thank you for smoking the big one because, we do a lot of these shows and podcasts and, a lot of people are like, well, I've got a big one, but I just can't bring myself to smoke it. But so to see us on the show smoking the big one is, I appreciate that.
See,
to going with the 70s and the bigger cigar.
See, for me, it was like I knew I was smoking a big one. I just couldn't figure out which one to smoke.
Yeah.
And now I'm kicking myself because I'm like, it would have been cool to smoke the Asylum 9. That would have been awesome. But
Yeah.
but actually, since we bring that up, tell me a little bit about. I know that if I remember correctly from the stories I hear, like the Asylum 7, the 8, the 9, it kind of started off like a joke, right? Where it was like, oh, we're gonna make like an 80 ring gauge, and then you guys made it, and then you guys made a joke for April Fools where it was like, we're gonna do a 90 ring gauge, and everyone just thought it was April Fool's joke, and then was it you or Christian or someone who was like, no, like let's actually make like a 9-inch by 90, and you guys were like,
Yeah, well,
all right.
yeah, it's funny because obviously the 7 series when we started that series was really not based. What I wanted with that cigar was to come out with something celebratory for the big rig gauge smoker. When most guys they want to step up a level and celebrate a wedding or a birthday or a birth of a child or something, and they want to go to a Padron or a Davidoff or a Fuente and Opus or something on that level. The big ring gauge guy really never had that. So the real idea of launching that brand was to give the big ring gauge smoker a celebratory cigar, something they can say, oh, we're going to celebrate, I'm willing to spend the money and do that. And then we've always added the 1118 size, which is Christian's mother's birthday.
Yep.
And so we've added that in, and then so we did the 8, and then the 9. We were doing the 9, and Raul, in our marketing guy, head of marketing, he put the post. Him and William, our marketing people, put a post on social media that said Asylum 990 coming soon, and then if you flip the page, it said April Fools, and the hundreds of responses of saying, calling us out, hey, you pussies, make it, come on, we want it, like everything. They were just like, make it. So I looked at called Christian. I said, listen, let's make it. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So we just added it to the 9 series, and that'll be shipping shortly, sometime towards the end of this month, in the next couple weeks. The smaller sizes have started shipping, and now the 990s will come out the end of this month, beginning of November. They'll start arriving into stores. So it was, it really was a joke. And, we always thought, okay, we'll be good with the 80 by 8 as our biggest cigar. And then, our fans just came out and said, we want it. And the pre-sale, we pre-sold them, and they sold amazingly. So, now I'm here contemplating our 10-year anniversary, and do we do a 10 by 100? So we'll see. We haven't made that decision yet, but I think that'll be the end of the line if we do it for big.
I was gonna say, if you go 10 by 100, it would be cool to see that. But then after that, it would be like you'd have to just draw the line and be like, we can't go any bigger. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
do 20 by 200?
That was one of my questions. One of my questions was, how big do you go, right?
Yeah.
And it is. How big is it before it becomes novelty, right? Where
that's a great point.
We want people to enjoy them. The idea is, and the response told us, yeah, let's make it. People will enjoy it, and people want it. So, here we are, a few weeks away from it being into the marketplace, and it was a pleasant surprise to really see how many people really wanted it. And we get calls every day. How do I get them? On our social media, where do I get it? I want the 990. What store's going to carry it? And so there's a great buzz around it, and so we'll see next year if we step it up one more notch.
I think that another thing that comes to mind when we talk about these bigger cigars is, especially with like the tax situation and all that stuff that's floating around. You talk about maybe going, tax percentage by weight. You guys are some of the first people to come to mind also, and that's in a kind of a negative way. So, in what way? I mean, there's really not much you guys could do to really combat that. If worst case scenario that was to go into play, your prices would increase dramatically because of the weight of all those cigars.
Yeah, like an 80 by 8, I think will go up like $5.80.
Yeah,
wow,
that's a lot.
Just in tax. Yeah, it's a huge increase. So obviously, this is not something we are fond of. I was in DC last week doing a PCA event and got a good chance to, they did the international summit that day and got
Right.
got to spend the day with Scott Pierce and Josh, our lobbyist there with PCA, and Greg Zimmerman, the president of PCA, and got to talk quite a bit about, where does that stand? And, right now it looks like we're hoping it's not going to make it out of committee. They had some pretty good insight into thinking that it's not going to fly. So we hope that's the case. Things can change, but yeah, that would be definitely, and even a Robusto, you're looking at a 600+% increase in tax.
Right.
$2.50 a cigar. So it's a large jump, and I think a pretty big stretch by our friend Dick Durbin. Trying to raise money through taxation of tobacco again. It's like, how much can we be taxed? How much more can they take from us before we don't exist?
Right. No, it's a great argument because it's like you're playing this game of just trying to tax someone until you really tax them out of business in a sense where the taxes are just too high for them to really be competitive or make any money off of their products. And that's a danger that obviously, we're always thinking about with the cigar industry, considering there is such a huge target on our back. And that's why we stress so much about supporting PCA and CRA and all those organizations because, that's why they're there. They're there to help try and stop that. That's the front to try and protect that so that you don't see, your favorite cigar maybe go up, $5 and change. Because that's scary.
Tax,
Yeah, and that's just tax.
for,
That's on top of the inflation and operating costs. I know for anyone who follows, like we were talking about this before, Steve Saka on social media. He made a really great post today about how things are going to go up and prices are going to go up, taxes and stuff that we just talked about that are threatening to go into play, and just shortages on stuff, shortages on staff. I know, as a manufacturer, and you can speak to this a little bit more yourself. We kind of got into it a little bit before, but in the last year, ever since this pandemic started, it has been a roller coaster. But you guys are probably, the demand is higher and the production's lower, and there's so many variables right now. Tell us a little bit from your standpoint, just how this last year has really been, and where do you see it going next year?
I think, we're going to stay in this pattern right now. When we look at, we're looking at demand through the pandemic and the COVID, and we're seeing, people are at home. People are not going out to dinner as much. So the expendable cash on products like ours exist. And, when like you had mentioned that demand is up and production is down, but the reality is production is up too. Even with the lack of rollers, because you just can't. There's nobody to employ in Esteli, Nicaragua anymore.
Right.
You've had hundreds of thousands of people leave the country, same as Honduras. And they're in these small mountain villages. There's and the growth of Esteli over the last 13 years since 2008 is huge. The amount of factories from 2008 to 2021, it's probably went up tenfold.
Right.
And so there's just nobody else to work there. There's not even people to train. You can only bus out so far and pull people in, and we're feeling those effects in Danlí and Honduras now. And but our production is up. We're making more cigars. We still can't meet the demand. And, I think the real issue we'll see in the next year or so is going to be the raw material. You can only plan for so long, or, you can plan for 20% year over year, but you're doing that 3 years in advance. So you're already planning for 60% more tobacco in 3 years. Right. And then you add a pandemic that grows your business 45, 50% 2 years in a row. And now you just couldn't plan for that. So, right. Now we can plant more tobacco. We're very fortunate to be a vertical company. We grow a lot of our own tobacco. But, we have to take a lot of capital and invest in more tobacco, invest in, whether we're using San Andreas Maduro or Connecticut broadleaf or whatever wrappers we're using that we don't grow, we have to buy a lot more of that. So it takes a lot of the upfront capital. And I think in the near future, the biggest threat is just raw material, to be able to have and put out the same quality and the same uh, cigar consistently is raw material could definitely run into the issue as much as rollers, as the issue sits today. It's just labor.
Now, I know a lot of people were talking about it last year and kind of the height of like the pandemic in the beginning, especially when things were a little bit more shut down and the boom, this pandemic cigar boom really first began to rise. And we've already begun to see it, but there was talk of cigar shortage just because of all these things that we just talked about. Do you see the possibility of a much bigger shortage, maybe in the next year or so, just after everything that was already had and everything that was harvested this year was made and gotten out, and you kind of deplete what you already had, and like you said, you invest in tobaccos, but those tobaccos might not be ready for a little while. By the time they grow and they ferment and then they age and you roll them and age and all that whole, by the time it actually gets to the retailer, you're talking, that's a lot of time. Could we be seeing as a manufacturer where, hey, like I have nothing to give you because we sold everything and everything else is waiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real possibility for some people. If we're again fortunate to be a vertical company and grow a lot of our own tobacco, but for some of these other smaller companies that buy their tobacco for somewhere else or have somebody else roll it, you know, companies are going to start keeping tobacco for themselves. Companies that would sell some of their tobacco before or whatever. So, yeah, I definitely could see a pinch happening, and the large companies are growing and buying tobacco and preparing, and so if you don't have the capital to do it, or or just the means to constantly have consistent tobacco, yeah, I do see that being a possible issue for people in the future, without a doubt.
Well, I think on that note, I want to get into our news segment because I have something that's kind of related in our news segment this week, which is brought to you by McAuliffe Cigars. McAuliffe Cigars, if you head over to McAuliffeCigars.com, you can sign up to become an official ambassador, get your ambassador coin, your ambassador number, and while you're at it, pick up a McAuliffe tasting passport. You can spoke through the McAuliffe catalog, turn it back in for a chance to win some great prizes. This week, an interesting story was announced. Anybody who's a fan of Arturo Fuente, Fuente announced that they will be delaying the October slated release for the Rare Pink collection, which goes to benefit breast cancer. And $13 from every box sold of the Rare Pinks goes towards breast cancer research. And this was due to a lot of different things that we just talked about, including, just inaccessible materials and stuff like that, and which they have said, hey, we're still going to get these out, but we're not going to be able to make this deadline. So, I mean, here we are right here again. Now we're seeing this. This is another company with another cigar. Hey, we can't get this to you, like we said. It's still coming, but we're working with challenges right now. The interesting twist to this story, though, which you can read about at SmokinTabacco.com, is for the first time ever, they will be shipping the Casa Fuente, which, if you don't know what that is the house cigar from Casa Fuente, the retail store and lounge at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, which any cigar smoker who's ever been to Vegas, and if you've ever been there, if you're a Fuente fan, that's a huge deal. It's the only place in the world you can usually get them, with the exception of sometimes some of them are available at special Fuente-supported charities and raffles and stuff that they do for charity. You can get them, but for the most part, you can only get them at that store, and they don't ship online and anything like that. So you're going to be seeing the Casa Fuente cigars available at retailers all around the country, I believe, by this week, end of this week, beginning of next week, instead of the Rare Pinks that were originally supposed to go out. So, right here, I grabbed this story. I figured, this obviously this ties into what we're talking about. You're already seeing it, and Fuente is a big company too. They've been around a long time. So even for them to have a cigar release where they're like, we're just not going to get it on time. It's not just for the little guys. All the big guys are. This is something that is really affecting everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right? I mean, they're a great company. The Fuentes are first class family and people, and make great products. And just like us, their demand has went up through all of this, and the same things. You can prepare for so much growth, but sometimes you just can't prepare for this kind of thing.
Right, absolutely. And I feel like, you know, this whole it happened so quickly too, and it happened so suddenly. And like you said, there was really no time to prepare. It wasn't the steady increase where you're like, wow, we're seeing a lot more growth, and we should start. It just kind of went right up, and then it was like, shit, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. It was, because those first couple months where the retail shops were closed down, or they were just cash and carry, at the door, curbside pickup type stuff, and then all of a sudden you see it kind of open up, and it was just like, holy smokes, like you're having your best month over best month over best month, month after month, and it has been a real strain on the supply chain. Obviously, supply chain, just even today, we have shipments ready to come in, and they can't get them to us. They're like, there's no room on the plane. It won't ship for, it's not a long period, but an extra 3 or 4 days now before the next shipments can come in, when they were supposed to be in this week. And we won't see it till next week. So it creates, again, a miss and turns, just those 3 or 4 days is loss of business.
On a related note, though, right? So similar to what Matt was just, same topic, right? The Fuente delay, what we just talked about, right? The issue with the resources, everything really related to the last year and a half or so. Is that significantly impacting, your sales strategy and release strategy? I know you just said a few days here and there for certain things, but overall over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, has that really pushed things out for you?
What it's done for us is obviously the production in Nicaragua is slower for us. Honduras, we're up quite a bit. We're adding more rollers. We're doing everything we can there to supplement. But when we're talking about new products for next year, absolutely. Do we really want to add new products, or do we just need to focus? We'll do the 10, but outside of that, we really don't have a lot in the works, or even talking about it, just because we've got to supply what we can right now.
Right.
So it absolutely, I think, has an impact on new products and things like that, and being creative, because the simple fact is, we've got to get out what is on back order now. So yeah, I think you'll see a slow in new products, just for that reason. We want to focus on what we have now, and really focus on getting what is already ordered into the marketplace, and getting caught up, and making sure our customers are supplied the best we can.
Now, obviously, you go in all of this that's happening. You see a lot of manufacturers maybe not releasing anything new, but there's also a fair amount of new stuff coming out. We talked about the Asylum 9s coming out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How in a place where you're already trying to get caught up with everything you already have, just how much more of a challenge does that make releasing something new in the middle of that too? Because I can imagine that makes that even harder to try and debut something new while you're also just trying to keep everyone else above water.
Yeah, it really does. And obviously you go in with the plans, and to create new products, and obviously, like PCA this year, the PCA exclusives, we had an Aroa and an Asylum in both of those. So, when you look at just, raw materials, we're fine on, and then we look at rolling, and, we're getting them out. But you also got to look at production, the box factory. We have our own box factory. Well, when you have 3 new blends and 3 new boxes that you got to produce thousands and thousands of boxes for, now your box factory is kind of switching gears and getting these done, and now you don't have boxes for the other stuff.
Right.
So there's a bunch of roadblocks and stops. You manage it, we juggle it the best we can, and we'll stop production of this to get this caught up, and then we'll go back to the 770s, and then the ogres are back ordered. So we focus on ogres for a little while to get that caught up. So it's just kind of always a constant kind of juggling and really managing the back order. We're almost having to work off of that number.
Wow. You mentioned the PCA, and it always seems to come up. And this kind of ties a little bit to the boom question, right? So, from your perspective, being on the trade show floor, did you find that there were and I don't really know the answer to this because I think you're the first person I've actually asked this question of, so I'm not putting you on the spot, but I am. Did you find that there were more new retailers on the floor, seeking to open accounts than in the past as part of this side effect of the boom?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I definitely thought there were, obviously attendance was down to the traditional number.
Yeah, that's why I worded it that way. Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that the people who came and supported the PCA were enthusiastic, excited to be there, to be a part of the trade show and the organization. They were all over the PCA exclusives to really support PCA and support our business. So as attendance was down, I get, because some trade shows got pushed closer together, like TPE and those things. So people made a decision to go to one or the other. But the attendance that came to buy, they were businesslike. And we did have quite a few new people, and we've stopped opening new accounts. We have decided, on the Nicaraguan side for a while, no new accounts with Nicaraguan products, but we had production of Honduran products. So we just tell them, listen, you can open the account, but this is all we can provide you with, because we've got to take care of the customers we already have on, the 70s and the ogres and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, I think, we had, don't quote me on the number, but I think we had over 35 new accounts open at the show this year that came and showed interest and were very willing and to accept, the situation that we're in. So, from my standpoint, the customers, were fantastic. I mean, the energy at the trade show and the excitement about the PCAs, the appreciation of us being there was awesome. And I can't say enough how much we appreciate, all of our consumers and customers, but for the brick and mortars that showed up and they came and they came to support the people there. And it was a fantastic show for us.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, I was at PCA. You guys had a great booth, with Asylum and CLE, and you and Christian were both there, and Raul was there. We had some one-on-one time with Christian. We did an interview. We didn't get a chance to sit down with you, but you guys were just busy. I mean, I felt like while attendance was down, the biggest takeaway for me was the people who did come, they came to play. They came with money, they came to spend it.
Yeah.
And I just remember going through a lot of the booths, and while it was a smaller footprint, it was a smaller show, what was there was still busy. And it was like, I went through your booth and so many other booths, and, that's half the reason why, we didn't really even get a chance to talk to you. I mean, you guys were cranking. You guys were. Yeah. There was a lot of people who were just showing a lot of interest, and that CLE Asylum booth was pretty busy for the most part, most of the show, which I thought was a great thing to see.
Yeah, you go into these things and we're not sure what's going to happen with people's buying abilities and who's attending and all that. So we were very pleasantly surprised at the retailers that came and supported us and supported the PCA. And, again, the smaller footprint, it was a nice kind of reset of the trade show in a way, where like the great arms race of who's going to have the biggest booth and
yeah.
Who can create this biggest monstrosity really didn't exist there this year. It was just true tobacconists and manufacturers. They're doing business on uh, a very personal level and trying to do the best they can for our industry and for ourselves. So it was. I thought it was a great show.
Absolutely, I would agree. So we shift away from all of that. I want to make sure we get into some of your other cigars as well, and not just the big stuff. As fun as that is, obviously you guys have Asylum has a lot of other cigars, and obviously that are not a massive size, as we mentioned before. One in particular, that I've enjoyed, which I believe is newer to the market. I'm not going to say new, but newer. You mentioned it before, was the Medulla Oblongata.
Yeah.
That came out, I want to say, don't shoot me, was it 2 years ago?
No, I think the Corojo was 4 years ago, and then the Maduro was 3 years ago.
Ah, okay. That
it gets kind of confusing with COVID, right? Like
I
it's
know.
like a year skip. So
yeah, it's almost like the joke in the house was kind of like it was the 2020 was the year that never happened, and I think everyone just glazed over it back to 2021 when everything started to happen again. So it just kind of went like 18, 19, 21. So I can't believe it had already been that long. But yeah, no, that was a cigar that I've enjoyed, and it was nice because it was different. It was an Asylum, smaller cigar. It was a fun smoke. And you guys have had a bunch of stuff like that. You guys have the Insidious, I believe, that you guys came out with. Where do you guys? First of all, I have to ask, where do you guys come up with these names? Aside from the whole Asylum theme, it's just like where do they? I mean, the Medulla. To be honest with you, when I heard Medulla Oblongata, the first thing I thought of was that scene in The Waterboy.
It's 100% from that. Christian, huge movie buff, right? He loves movies. And so, that's the nice part about Asylum. We're so flexible, right? And, again, the true meaning and what we try and do is always about where we go to find that place to relax and go. But we like to have fun with the names. We have the schizos and, like the nectophilia. And that we really look through these names in like medical books and just kind of come up with them. And Christian keeps a huge list, right? Like Christian puts everything in his phone. He's got a list that he goes to. And so we're always trying to find the list and look at what's going to really fit the personality of the cigar. So like the nectophilia was funny just because it was, it's an all Maduro cigar. So nectophilia means a penchant for the dark. So it's all dark cigar, binder, wrapper, filler. So it really fit the name very well. And then Insidious is an Asylum brand, but we wanted that to kind of be its own thing. So we don't really call it Asylum. It's just Insidious on its own. And that's, the sweet cap cigar that we've made for many, many years. When we had Camacho, we had the Backrat. And so we thought, it's a great first time cigar. We've got to be in that marketplace. And, and the Medulla Oblongata was strictly straight from the Waterboy. Christian loved it. And with the two, the box pressed and the round together, it just kind of fit perfectly. So.
Now, there's another cigar that debuted recently that I thought was pretty cool, and that was the Big Time Tommy that came out.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about how did that come to be?
So, a number of years ago, Tommy's cousin Sal was on America's Got Talent. And you watch the show and people start sending me, hey, there's this guy standing on the side of the stage, right? And you got Tommy, this big Italian guy, and he's got his black leather jacket on. But the whole time, he's got his Asylum 770. So, we said, okay, we got to find this guy and send him, just send him some cigars to say thank you for promoting our brand without promoting our brand, And
right.
So, I was in Long Island, and we were at Matador, which was a shop he used to hang out at quite a bit. And the guy's like, yeah, he's not here. But so we were trying to hook up. And then I was with Vincent at Delray Beach, the Smokin in Delray Beach, Florida. And Vincent's like, I'm great friends with Tommy. Let's call him right now. So he calls Tommy. He puts me on the phone, and he looks at me. He says, "I've been waiting for your call." And I said, "Okay, what do you want to do, Tommy?" He's like, "Listen, I want to do my own brand with you guys. I've been waiting for you guys." So we sat down and talked with Tommy and put a bunch of blends together and sent them to him and let him pick what he wanted. And Raul did the artwork, and so it's he's a great guy. We have a lot of fun with Tommy, and obviously I feel bad right now because the shortage of cigars and rollers. I'm trying to get them more cigars because they're selling really well for us. And but yeah, it was just kind of, we saw him on America's Got Talent. I wanted to reach out to him, and it took me almost 2 years to actually finally get a phone conversation with him. And right away we hit it off and started working on the project. And
That's
fortunately we did
cool.
the lunch, down at Delray Beach at his buddy Vincent's place, and then we did the 660 launch at Two Guys. We did the events at all three stores, at three of the stores, to launch the 660.
Yeah, I had caught those launches. I thought it was pretty cool, and I haven't had a chance to smoke the cigar yet myself, but I know that one was a newer one too. That's been pretty popular lately. So I wanted to definitely ask about that. And he's a funny guy. He definitely seems like a great guy to just hang out with, and be around too. And he just seems like he really fits that persona of like Asylum. He's a great, like you said, he's promoting the brand without like officially promoting it. It's like, well, he fits so well. He's a great face for it.
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and Tommy was, I've got to obviously travel with him a little bit and do some events with him, and he's excited about the brand, and it's funny because I didn't know a lot about him. He was did the show with his cousin and created the buzz, and then he had a show. I forget what the name of the show was, but he had a show like a used car lot in New York. And on like Discovery or one of the channels, and so he had built up a pretty good following. And I remember I would be, my fiance Tina lives in Canada, and she's got three boys, and we'd be like at her house, and they grew up. Their dad Rob is from New York. And so they would always be saying, "Take it easy," or, one of his kind of sayings. And I'm like, I didn't know what they were talking about. And they're like, "Oh, it's this big time Tommy guy. We love him." They always watch his Instagram or whatever. And so it was funny. And then the next thing you know, I'm like, "Hey, that guy smokes my cigars." And it was kind of funny that, they followed him for a long time, and they followed Tommy, and we got a chance to, actually do a cigar with the guy. He's got a great following on Instagram, and he's a good promoter in promoting the brand, and so we're very we're glad to have him as part of our family here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time for our top three segment, which is once again brought to you by Room 101 Brands. Room 101 is not just cigars, it's a lifestyle. Head over to room101brands.com and check out all the great masterpieces that Matt Booth and his team have created. And while you're at it, check out Room 101 Cigars. They surely won't disappoint, and you will be enchanted at first light. This week, the topic is going to be top three cars. Now, I'm a car guy. I know Nelson's a car guy. Tom, you a car guy at all?
I like cars. I'm more of a truck guy, so
All right.
I like big trucks.
That falls into the category.
Yeah. Well, that's acceptable. I'll allow it. All right. So I'll let you go first. If you had to give me a top three vehicles, we'll just put a blanket statement on it. Vehicles. What would your top three be all time? Can be anything you want.
My top three. My number one is Eleanor.
Yeah, that would probably be my number one too.
667 Mustang. I absolutely love that car. Born and raised in Detroit, so the classic muscle car is something that is just bred in me.
Yeah.
So I would take that. I think my next choice would probably be, what I like to tease Christian. I call him Italian trash, but probably a Ferrari. I love the Ferrari, the new ones. Like the 458s, the 488s are absolutely beautiful cars. And so one of those is on the list. And then, for me, again, I'm a truck guy. So I like, I like big lifted trucks. And so for me, I used to be a Ford guy. Now I'm a GM guy, Chevy guy. So, I have a big Chevy lifted truck, hillbilly, but it's very nice.
There you go. Nelson, what do you got?
Well, since you opened up the door, I'm a truck guy as well, so I'm gonna borrow from Tom as well. So number 3 for me would be a Ford F-250 Super Cab. I have a Chevy Silverado, but if I could afford anything, I'd get the 350 is too big for me. I'm a short guy, but so I'd go with the 250. It's a mini size. My second is actually
Hold on, wait a minute.
1987.
Hold on,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
We have to. We got to clarify though. Would you go Power Stroke
Or
gas? Like, if you're gonna go.
no, I'd go gas.
Really? You
Actually, no. You know what?
wouldn't go with the P-Stroke?
Yeah, I'd go gas. No, I'd go gas.
Interesting choice. All right, continue.
It's what I know. It's what I know. You know what I mean?
All right, continue.
Number 2 would be a 1987 Grand National. So I'm an 80s child, and I've always loved the Grand Nationals. They're just awesome looking cars. I've always enjoyed them. And of course, to round it off, my number 1, and it's funny, I was just showing this to my wife, and she's like, "No, you're not buying one." Is a 1980 Camaro with T-tops. I've just always wanted to own one, and I thought it might be my midlife crisis, but my wife said no. So,
But my wife said no.
Sometimes it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask permission. That's all.
Yes,
I'm say,
it's true.
Yes, sir.
That's very
Great
true.
advice. I'll just tell her Tom said so.
I think for me, I would probably echo the muscle cars with Tom. I love trucks too. I have a 2021 Silverado, the Trail Boss edition. I love that truck so much. But I am a Mustang guy, and I also own a Mustang. I would say, for me, my number. But I like Chevy and I like Ford. So I know people like it's got to be one or the other, but. Screw you. I can do whatever I want. It's my show. I like Chevy and Ford. So if I'm talking muscle cars, number 3 would probably be the 70 Chevelle SS. I mean, that's just, if you know
Great
cars,
choice.
that's a classic. Number 2 is interesting because if I was to go something like really high end, like hypercar type, I like the Lambos and the Ferraris and stuff like that. But if I was to really go all out and get something real fast and real fancy like that, I've always had an affinity for the Koenigsegg Regera R. I always thought that was a pretty interesting car, in the engineering that went into making it. I always loved that car. But number 1, I'd probably go Eleanor too. I mean, I'm a Mustang guy, so I mean, number 1 is going to be a Shelby for me. It's just I can't say anything else. I mean, that's it for me.
It's just a cool car.
Oh,
yeah, it's a cool car.
Absolutely. I mean, how can you not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's funny. So on my car, I needed to replace the hood because there was a factory defect in the stock hoods, and my car is actually pretty heavily modified too. And so I was like, I kind of want to just replace the whole hood. I want to go fiberglass, and I'm going to change the styling a little bit. And I remember looking at some of the Super Snake hoods with the double vent, and I liked that. But then I found the Eleanor style cowl hood, and I just remember being like, yeah, no, that's what I'm going with. And I actually have that Eleanor hood on my car,
Oh wow.
which I love too. It's such a unique, and you don't see a lot of them too on a lot of cars. So I like how it makes my car look a little bit more unique. So I definitely I'm with you on that one, Tom, 100%.
So did you do the 6.2 or the 5.7 in the Trail Boss?
Oh shit, what did I do? I think I have the 5.7. Yeah, I got the 5.7. Yeah, I got the 5.7, the LT.
Yeah.
I love that thing. I love that thing.
Yeah, I just bought one. I had I used to have an F350 Power Stroke, crew cab, lifted. It was an awesome truck. And then, I switched eventually to. I tried the GMC. I got one, and then I bought a Silverado from Christian. Christian had a Silverado, and he's like, I don't use it anymore. Just it was a 2018, so I bought it, and it was the 5.7. And then I was like, I'm gonna lift it. So I was down in Miami for like 3 months, so I drove down. So we went. Christian's like, oh, well, take it to this guy. So we started looking at it, and then he's like, you got to look at these things. Go to GM, and so I went to GM, and they actually send the trucks out to a place called SCA in Trustville, Alabama. And they do everything to it. So like I have one, it's called the Rocky Ridge Edition. I traded mine in, and I got this Rocky Ridge Edition. It's the Z71 RST.
Yeah.
But what they do to it is they put custom 22-inch rims. They put a 6-inch lift, a whole new front end.
Oh, wow.
All the interior. They do the gauges in Rocky Ridge. They do the
Wow.
exhaust. They put a gun safe in the center console so I can carry a pistol and lock it in there. They got the light bars on it and all that stuff. So I just about 5 months ago, I traded in the old truck and got the new one, the one that I really wanted. So I achieved my goal of my truck. Now Christian says, well, look, now you got to put headers and chip it and do all that stuff. I said, all right, I'll get, when the warranty's almost up, I'll do that stuff to it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, because my truck's still like, I mean, I'm a year out with it, so I'm like, it's still new. It's 2020, so I'm like, I'll wait till the warranty's over, so that way, I can milk that in case I need it. But then once that's gone and I got nothing left to lose, like, yeah, we'll start playing with that truck a little bit,
modifying it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what was nice. That, they don't do any engine modification, but everything else comes with the full factory warranty on the lift and everything. So
right.
Buying it that way, right from them, was just made it like an easy choice rather than me doing it to my old truck. I'm just like, all right, I'll just trade it in. They actually gave me more money than I paid for the truck because trade-ins are so valuable right now.
Oh,
so
I know.
It worked out pretty good.
That's really true.
Really
yeah.
well.
Yeah, I mean, trade-ins are like gold right now, because, I mean, they can't even get new cars, so it's like, well, we got to get some used cars to sell. I mean, they need inventory to stay open, so, it's amazing you even got some. I know Carney actually just got a Trail Boss, too, because he was asking me about mine, because I know he wanted a truck or whatever, and I was like, dude, you got to get one. I love this truck, whatever. And then he was like, all right, I ordered one. And then I think it was like a week ago, he texted me, and he was like, it's here. And he was all excited. So now he's part of the big truck crew too. So
there we go.
It's very fitting. He's a big guy though. He needs a big truck. And I told him that. I'm like, you're gonna want the comfortability. You need it.
And it's huge. Like the inside, the 4-door, the crew cab. Like there's so much room in that truck. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had a 18 Silverado Z71 with the midnight package. Everything was black. And it was an 18. It was a double cab though, so it was the shorter extended cab. And unfortunately, I got totaled in an accident, so I had to, on short notice. Thankfully, it was just a lease, so it was actually easier for me to just close that out. Insurance, took care of it and all that.
Yeah.
And then I just went to the dealership, last year, just as like the truck shortage and the vehicle shortage was starting to come about, and I just remember being like, I want something like I already had, and they're like, well, they don't make that anymore, but they got the Trail Boss, and I only have one, so if you don't like it and you don't want it, like, there's nothing I can do for you. And I was like, all right, well, let me see it. And I remember seeing it, I was like, this is nicer than my last truck, and I was like, and it's a full crew cab, which is what I definitely wanted, and I was like, yeah, sold. I'm like, I'll take it.
Yeah, they're nice trucks.
And I loved it. I've loved it ever since. It's been great. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, we've had a good time here tonight. I have to say, we talked a lot about big cigars, not a lot on regular cigars, but big cigars need love too, as they say.
Absolutely.
And this is the perfect time to do it. So I want to thank both of you guys for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate it. But before we go, anything else that you guys want to say while we're on the air? Anything you guys want to promote? Tom, I'll let you go first. You are a guest. Anything new? Anything announcements you want to make on behalf of the company or whatever? The floor is yours.
Yeah, just the PCA exclusives, the Asylum PCA exclusives will be shipping here shortly. So in the next couple weeks, get out to your favorite brick and mortar shop, and it's got to be a PCA member to get them. So please support your PCA retailers and the PCA, and really get out there. The taxation and the FDA issues. Please, if you're listening, take a short minute. You can go right to PCA's website, and they'll do a letter right to your state senators and Congress people. Make sure you're hitting those people and getting out there and making your voice heard to protect our industry for the future.
Very well said. Very well said. Thank you for that, Tom.
Yeah.
Nelson, what do you got? What's going on with Cigar Squad over there?
I do have one final question for Tom. So,
go right ahead.
I'm a big Rojas fan, and he's the king of the small gauge, right?
Yeah.
So arguably, you're the king of the large gauge. So if Smokin Tabacco set up a celebrity boxing match to really determine the king of the gauges, would you be up for it?
Yeah, listen, I'm born and raised in Detroit, man. I don't mind getting punched in the head once in a while.
We can't have two kings. That's all I'm saying. We can't have.
Wait, I have another question for Tom. So while we're on this topic, have you guys ever done like a Lancero or anything small like that?
We did, yes, absolutely. The Asylum 13 Nicaragua, we did the 99 problems. That was probably 5 years ago. Christian hates Lanceros, right? He doesn't like doing Lanceros.
Most people do.
It was funny because we're like, all right, so we decided to do the Lancero, and then Christian's like, dude, we got to make a new box, and the box factory's already jammed up. So he said, well, what do we have that's 7 inches? The 770. So he's down at the factory. He calls it. He's like, well, 99 of them fit in a box. And I said, well, if they really like Lanceros, they'll buy a box of 99. So we called it 99 Problems and put that out. And then we did the Ogre Lancero in a 30-count box. We kind of came back to reality and did the 30. But they sold fantastically. And a lot of people think they're still limited edition or they were one time. But we still make them for the retailers that want them. And then in the CLE lines, we've done like the Aroa Classic. We've done some shop exclusives. We did it for Spring Street, and we did the Aroa Classic. And actually, that's my next cigar I got here is the CBT Lancero. So I'm here at the Cigar Club in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I had an event here tonight, and I said, I got to take some time away to do a show tonight. They gave me, they're like, here, smoke one of these. So we do have a few Lanceros in the mix.
All right, so there you've heard it then. In case you didn't know, and I wasn't fully aware myself. I wanted to be sure. There's your answer. They also do the smaller stuff too. So it's not just the big cigars. They go from the real skinny stuff, the Lanceros, all the way up to the 9x90 and maybe a 10x100. Well, I'll have to wait another year and find out. So
yeah, we're gonna have to ponder that one a little bit.
We'll be waiting on April Fool's Day for the official announcement. I think that's how it's gonna go.
Yeah,
Raul, make it happen. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you both again for being here with us. Thank you for watching here live at the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe everywhere podcasts can be found, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We will see you next week. Take care, everybody.